The higher you build your barriers, the taller I become. The further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You hide behind walls of Jericho, our lives will come tumbling down. Deny my place in time, you squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so bright it will blind you, because there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone, oh no. Something inside so strong, oh, something inside so strong. Brothers and sisters, when they insist that we're just not good enough, good enough. When we know better, just look them in the eyes and say, we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining this year's AWEF Summit. Our topic this year is about being an agile woman, and I just want to commend the team at AWEF, the leadership at AWEF, and thank you for that opening song, Something Inside So Strong. I hope that all of us today will bring out that strong woman within ourselves that is agile. I would like to thank our AWEF team. None of this could have happened without the team. My deputy presidents, Ms. Nomon Deswani and Ms. Lynn Miller, and the subcommittee. If I read all the names, we will be here all day. We have a very strong team, and I hope that everybody has felt us in the last 5 months. And in particular, our head of events, Disebo Motabeng, who worked tirelessly with the AWEF team to put this event together. We are currently a team of 13 at AWEF. People ask why. Normally it's a small team, but we had so much to do and we have so much to still put out. We decided to have a stronger, bigger team so that we engage with you, not just once, but throughout the year. AWEF has previously been known for the AWEF Summit and not much about being in touch all the time. What we've decided this year is that you will feel us all the time with our mentorship programs, our skills development programs, our events that are every month, and I know most people have been joining them. And today is only 2 hours because it's not the end, it's really the beginning, and we're engaging you further. This year, our vision came through what we saw coming from the pandemic. All of us have had to be agile, work differently. And we're truly blessed today to talk about being an agile woman in finance amidst the challenges around the world and the various opportunities that this has presented, as our panelists will allude to. So thank you so much to our keynote speakers and our panel for coming through. A bit of protocol. There is a chat group. Put your questions. We will definitely answer all your questions, either in the chat group or during the panel. Prof. Pakeng, when she speaks, she will answer the questions that you're putting through to her as well. I would also like to thank our president for ABSIP for joining us. So at this moment, I would like to hand over to her, my boss, Ms. Liteka. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to our panelists. We look forward to hearing from you, being engaged and engaging with yourselves. And we really appreciate you making the time to join this important discussion today. And indeed, very well done to the AWEF team for putting this together. I know that they have been hard at work, and it makes us very proud that we've got such dedicated young women who are leading the charge on transformation and the inclusion of women across the financial services sector. So mine is really a short welcome message and introduction to ABSIP for those who may not remember our reason for existence. So ABSIP has been around since 1995, and at the time that it was launched, which is more than 25 years ago now, the intention primarily was to try and drive as many Black young professionals into the financial services sector as possible. As we all know that at the time there were very few Black professionals occupying any positions of significance in the financial services sector. And we believe, looking back, that we have by and large achieved certainly the number of people that are now operating in the space, both Black men and women. But we remain with a number of challenges. Some of you will have noticed that we have been running a transformation series. 25 years or 26 years later, we are still talking about what should transformation look like? Actually, what should it mean? What is tangible transformation? So the debate continues. We have been very fortunate that over the years, with the increase of Black professionals in the financial services sector and them gaining significant experience. We've also seen a growth in the number of Black firms that have been launched and that are operating very successfully, and that's really very exciting. So our stakeholder base has, as a result, moved beyond just focusing on the inclusion of Black professionals, but really also being of service to well, big corporate, your traditional corporate in the financial services sector on the one hand, your up and coming Black professionals and Black firms that are operating across the sector. And I think since we came into this position on the 27th of May 2020, our focus as the new NEC for ABSIP has really been to rebuild and strengthen the organization and really reposition it as an important advocate for transformation in the financial services sector, because we do believe that it is through the transformation of the financial services sector that we will actually meaningfully be able to drive transformation across all other sectors of our economy, because this remains a key driver towards transformation, especially when it comes to issues of economic inclusion and financial inclusion. Much work needs to be done. We saw with the recent looting in the townships just how negatively affected people who live in the townships are, but also it brought into a very sharp focus the reality that the financial services sector, although it claims to have been transformed, if you look at the scorecards, the people that actually matter, 60% of our population, we are told, lives in the townships, have still not felt the benefit of this transformation that we claim to have achieved over the past 26 years. So it is our mission as ABSIP to really drive that conversation, but beyond driving the conversation, to actually developing position papers and blueprints around what real transformation should look like across the board, and not just seeing Black faces, I suppose, in the financial services sector, but importantly, your ordinary South African feeling the tangible benefits of what this transformation we talk about really looks like. So we look forward to today's session. I'm sure the agile women that we have today will really also unpack further what transformation means or should mean for Black women in particular, and not just as professionals, but really as citizens of this country. What does real tangible transformation look like? What does it translate into in terms of the quality of living and things like that? So thank you all very much, and I wish you the best of success as you deliberate today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you wonderful women. Thank you, Mameja. Mameja, over to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Now we'll go into a video from one of our sponsors. We're really grateful to have our sponsors. But I think firstly, if I'm not mistaken, we go to Nomonde, who is our deputy president, and she will be talking to you about the AWIF strategy and vision. As mentioned, we've decided that this year we're going to do things differently. And thanks to the leadership of Nomonde and Lynn, Nomonde, over to you.
Thank you, Mameja, and morning to all the delegates and panelists. We're quite excited to be hosting this summit today. And before we get into the exciting part of the agenda, we thought it's opportune to give those who don't know the Women in Focus Committee, a high-level overview in terms of the strategy and vision and where we are heading and some of the projects we currently are embarking on. So if the AWIF was actually established in 2006, mainly focusing on the establishment of women in the financial services sector, and has evolved into us focusing in 4 key strategic pillars. The first one being around advocacy work in terms of participating in key industry forums to promote gender diversity in the sector. The second pillar being quite important in terms of mentorship and skills development, where we facilitate skills transfer through industry-specific academic programs and also leadership courses. and some of the initiatives that we have done in this space, I'll touch on just a bit later. And the third pillar being the women-owned businesses in terms of us creating those partnership links in terms of access to capital for women-led businesses and also facilitating the skills development in that area. And the fourth pillar being quite also important in terms of networking through our fireside chats, the series that we've had touching on some of the topical issues in the industry, and the current annual summit that we are hosting right now. So just to give a bit of color in terms of how these four strategic pillars, how we've been implementing certain projects this year and where we want to head as AWIF, some of the key achievements were around the mentorship and skills development pillar, which I've highlighted. Earlier this year, we actually hosted, we actually facilitated the sponsorship of the Southgate Gibbs private equity course, where we managed to raise funds to sponsor 9 ladies in the industry to take that course. It was quite critical for us to get into this space because there's not a lot of women who've got experience in the private market space. And this is one initiative that ABSIP was jointly around the Southgate Gibbs course that we were involved in. In September, we are launching the Frankel Templeton Academy investment course, where we've identified a cohort of 20 women who will be participating in this program. That is through ABSIP's initiatives and the partnerships that we have in the industry. Some of the key fireside chats that we've also hosted have involved key book reviews around topical issues. There's been a mental health session that we've had, which was well received and may require follow-up given the challenges that we have been facing during this pandemic. Another initiative that we want to focus on going forward, which also is quite a topical issue, around board leadership, having a board leadership series and facilitating executive development and actually addressing the challenges of women at executive and board level. So this just summarizes in terms of what AWIF is all about and how we initiate all these projects from a strategic perspective. Thank you, Manager.
Thank you so much, Nomonde, for all the information on our programs and everyone on the line. I mean, these programs can only go forward with your sponsorship. So we'd really like to thank Omeg and Aluwani for sponsoring this event, and those funds will go to some of the programs that Nomonde mentioned. There is a little video that's going to play.
In Africa, when the heavy rains fall, some people build dams, some build bridges, and some build ships. It's an observation that speaks to the essential nature of people and how they respond to a crisis. Some are cautious, simply looking to conserve what they have. Some expand their horizons, and some make the most of every opportunity. At Old Mutual Investment Group, we see the power of responsible investment and seek to allocate our clients' capital in such a way that they will meet their investment objectives and make a positive impact on society. It's about using investing as a force for good, about imagining a better world, and harnessing money to help make it happen. Investment with purpose today for meaningful returns tomorrow. Old Mutual Investment Group, investing for a future that matters. Old Mutual Investment Group is a licensed financial services provider.
Moving into I think the most exciting part of our agenda, I am going to introduce our first keynote speaker, who is Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng. Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng is the current Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town since July 2018. She holds a PhD in mathematics education from the University of Witwatersrand and is a highly regarded B1 National Research Foundation rated scientist with over 80 research papers and 5 edited volumes published. In 2008, she became the first Black South African researcher to be appointed to co-chair and a study commissioned by the International Commission of the Mathematical Instruction. She has won numerous awards for her research and community work, including the Order of the Baobab, conferred to her by the then President of South Africa in 2016. In July 2019, the University of Bristol conferred on her an honorary doctorate in science in recognition of her leadership role in mathematics education in South Africa. She also serves on a number of boards, including the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, and is also a trustee on the First Rand Foundation and also the South African Student Solidarity Foundation for Education. Some of her previous board positions also include serving on the Council of Science and Industrial Research, where she chaired its Research Development and Innovation Committee between 2015 and 2017. She is also the founder of the Adopt a Learner Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that started in 2004 and provides financial education support to students from township and rural areas to enable them to acquire higher education qualifications. Just by reading this, I was so inspired by Prof. And we are going to introduce Prof. Phakeng. And let's take a look into a day in the life of Prof. Phakeng before she delivers her keynote address.
Now you got 4 distinctions at matric. Leave that at home, man, and focus. One day you will look back and say, wow, I didn't realize that that's what I was gaining. Look at me now. Okay? Use the opportunity to build the networks, to learn new things, to learn to do new things, to even learn to be the girl who makes the parts happen. All right? Because to be the go-to person comes this way. Now, look at what's happening. So now I met Judy. I met her because she signed up to be a mentee on the Mentorship Boardroom. And I signed up to be a mentor on the Mentorship Boardroom, and I chose her, and now we're working together. And here I am. I'm an advocate for Judy. I didn't know her. 3 months ago, I didn't know her. But now, did you hear what I said? I said I will vouch for her. Hey, and I'm not joking, I will. Because I've been working with her, and I know what she can deliver. So you just never know where your luck lies. Grab every opportunity, grab every opportunity. Don't be entitled. Don't behave entitled. Don't go on Twitter and rubbish people and rubbish your company. Oh, they said I'm a graduate, a trainee, now they are making me do this. Hey, they are using me, what. Be open-minded. Learn, grow, and be better positioned for big opportunities that are unthinkable. People wonder how some people get opportunities. And you know, when this thing is talked about, everyone says, well, you've got to know the right people, you've got to be connected, you've got to be whatever. Well, it's not always that. Even when you're connected, if you act entitled, we are not interested. I'm sorry. We are not interested. Okay? So it is the person that you are. It is what you bring to the table. It's how willing you are to learn, to grow, and to contribute. You can make a name for yourself. You don't have to come from a big, known, money family. You just have to have the willingness to succeed, the willingness to contribute, and the willingness to make a difference. So go out there and make a difference, right? Right? Did you hear me? Do that. All the best in your career, guys. All the best. Of course, this was a Sunday session. As I said, it's my Varsity Swag series. That's why I'm wearing my Varsity Swag. Remember, you are always your Varsity Swag. You are the billboard of your university. If you're entitled, you give us an impression that that's what your university teaches the graduates. So go out there, be good, and give your university a good name. Bye-bye.
Welcome, Prof, to our AWIF Summit. Quite exciting, and I love the energy. So we're going to hand over to you to provide us your keynote address, and we're looking forward to just gaining some pearls of wisdom from yourself. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Sanbona, Nimolweni, Dumelang, leadership of ABSIP and leadership of AWIF. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a great pleasure to be here. Of course, the poster said women in financial services. I was like, I'm not. So thank you very much for including me on that poster. So I hope I managed to deliver my message or what's on my heart today in 10 minutes. In May this year, the Journal of Accountancy reported that leading accounting firms in the US were taking proactive steps to build diversity, equity, and inclusion into the profession. And journalist Ken Tisak reported that as a result of the George Floyd murder and other incidents of racism in that country, firm leaders realized that they needed to more fully embrace an inclusive culture in order to achieve a sense of belonging and trust. As a profession that thrives on data, we must be willing to review our recruiting, hiring, promotions, compensation, work assignments, and promotions if we want to make a lasting difference beyond the unfortunate tragedy. And that's what Ken Tisak said. One result is that as of the 17th of August this year, nearly 2,000 chief executives in financial services sector in the US, representing about 13 million staff members, have signed the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion Pledge. This is a commitment to create a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable workplace by, among other things, environments that support open dialogue on complex and often difficult conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, only time will tell whether a CEO's signature on this pledge will translate into real change in American companies. But I'm encouraged by the reference in the pledge to complex and often difficult conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is a step in the right direction because achieving diversity is not about ticking off boxes to indicate that different genders, races, sexual identities, religions, home languages, or socioeconomic backgrounds are represented in a particular organization. It is not even about unleashing women's potential. It is about unleashing human potential. McKinsey & Company reported in 2017 that despite making up 50% of the population, women generated just 37% of GDP. That proportion is likely to have fallen since COVID-19 has taken so many women out of the workplace to provide care at home. We are not contributing to the economy to our full potential. That's the truth. And that's because women around the world are held back by the power of masculinity. And that is bad for everyone, including men. For diversity, equity, and inclusion to help build business success, we need to create an environment where difference has a real voice and real agency. To create that environment, we need to talk about that difference and what it means in terms of every aspect of the workplace, not just who makes the business decisions, but what your business vision and mission is, how you carry that vision out, whose lives you affect, and how you market your services and how you measure success. I've been following the news reports about Samia Suluhu Hassan, who is serving as Tanzania's president since her predecessor, John Magufuli, passed away in March. President Hassan entered politics after first building an accomplished career as a labor activist. She was born in Zanzibar, a small economically struggling region that is marked by centuries of exploitation by foreign traders and colonialists, including the slave trade. Zanzibar has an autonomous government, although it also participates in Tanzania's government of national unity. Its population is noted for its cultural, ethnic, and religious diversity, speaking both Swahili and English. In a country that is more than 63% Christian, President Hassan is Muslim, and she wears traditional Muslim attire. With all of this background to draw on, what did the news headlines say when she took office in March? This is one of the things they said. Samia Suluhu Hassan becomes Tanzania's first woman president. Tanzanians debated whether to refer to her in the traditional African way as Mama Samia. Since then, however, media reports have focused on President Hassan's actions, bringing COVID-19 vaccines into the country after her predecessor denied the existence of the pandemic in Tanzania, exploring new policies to encourage business growth. She's also stirring up criticism recently among observers who have been hoping for social and legal reforms in Tanzania. She has raised concern about political freedom by arresting opposition party members. And most recently, she referred to female footballers as flat-chested women who are not attractive marriage candidates. Whether you agree with her or not, President Hassan is defying expectations of what a woman president will do and say. As one commentator wrote, at the end of the day, Tanzanians will judge her by her performance and how she led the country. By the way, President Hassan is the first woman president. Tanzanians may be discovering that the key to building better pathways for women in Africa is not just about opening the opportunity for a woman to lead, but also giving her the space to lead in her own way. President Hassan may also need to learn herself that lesson by setting aside her ideas of a woman's role in the home and the sporting world. That is the key to creating diversity, allowing the new president or line manager or CEO to exercise her own management style. The world needs different kinds of leadership to get us out of the mess that our past leaders have put us in, including climate change, poverty and inequality, sexual and gender-based violence, dwindling resources, to name just a few global issues. Creative leadership needs to arise out of the multitude of factors that make a woman leader who she is. Being a woman, of course, is not the whole story. That's what I want us to focus on today. It is not the whole story. It's just part of the story. Just being a Black woman or a colored person or a gay person or a traditional Catholic or Muslim or Jew is not the whole story. It's only part of the story. Robin Ely of Harvard Business School and David Thomas, the president of Morehouse College in the US, writes in the Harvard Business Review about the need for businesses and other organizations to proactively change the issues that stand in the way of gender equality. They say leaders must acknowledge that increasing demographic diversity does not by itself increase effectiveness. What matters is how an organization harnesses diversity and whether it's willing to reshape its power structure. So you can't just appoint a woman and think that things will change. It is also about how the organization or the company harnesses diversity and whether it's willing to reshape its power structure. Human history has been created in large part by one kind of leadership structure, the masculinity of power. And until recently, that power was predominantly white, it was male, and it was Western thinking. Anyone who was different was expected to assimilate into the roles that had been created by the masculinity of power. So women leaders have been expected to become one of the boys. Men who are gay or non-binary, whose skin was a different color, whose mother tongue was not English or Afrikaans, who came from a poor background, or who had some kind of disability, were expected to conform as much as possible to the same model. And this expectation not only denies the possibility of a diverse workplace, it also denies our identities as intersectional human beings. So much goes into creating each of us as individuals, as if the only thing I am is a woman, or the only thing I am is a Black person. It's not just about race or gender or economic background or any other category we might think of. Each of us is a person who is evolving as a result of all the different experiences and teachings that help shape our lives. We are cheating ourselves if we only see ourselves in terms of a demographic chat or a series of boxes to tick off. This is why we need the kinds of open dialogue and complex conversations the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion Pledge calls for. Research provides insights into the intersectionality of human identity. For instance, Dr. Dawn Pinnock, a research associate at UCT, our Center for Criminology, traces the rise of gang violence in the Cape Flats to the forced removals under apartheid. These drove young men into gangs in search of a sense of community that was taken from them. As Pinnock says, it is not the physical conditions that former District 6 residents yearn for. It is the way in which people interacted, a feeling of sharedness. It was always the extended family that formed the catch net of the urban poor. Within it were people who could be trusted implicitly and would give assistance willingly, immediately, and without counting the costs. Pinnock's work unravels the myth that boys will be boys. Instead, it encourages us to examine the systemic beliefs men and women have about each other and themselves. And good scholarship helps us understand these dynamics. Research from the South African Medical Research Council demonstrates that when men change sexist, domineering, and patriarchal views about masculinity and their roles in society, sexual and gender-based violence falls dramatically. When management shifts away from the power of masculinity in business and productivity and innovation, when management shifts away from the power of masculinity in business, productivity and innovation tend to rise. Research published in prestigious management journals such as the Harvard Business Review that I referred to earlier show how business and professional sectors benefit when management decides to shift from the power of masculinity to the power of diversity. Gender diversity in the workplace allows organizations to draw from a wider pool of talent and abilities that can contribute to productivity. Broadly speaking, women bring different perspectives to life experiences that can help organizations reach a broader market. The interaction of these different outlooks feed creativity and innovation. It helps organizations to identify and respond to a broader range of opportunities and makes them more resilient in times of change, such as we are experiencing now. And the same results can happen when organizations embrace diversity in other areas such as culture, home language, sexual identity, and so on. The hierarchy of intersectional gender discrimination is similar to the concept of white fragility. I mean, when I say I'm not just a Black woman, and in some ways, the refusal to recognize the intersectional gender discrimination is, in my view, what made the feminist movement fail. Note, I'm saying in my view, fail, right? And this hierarchy of intersectional gender discrimination is very similar to the concept of white fragility that American sociologist Robin DiAngelo discusses in her book that's entitled White Fragility. She describes white fragility as the defensive response many white people display, consciously or otherwise, when their whiteness is highlighted or mentioned, or their racial worldview is challenged. One reason for why people's discomfort, she says, is their underlying belief that they are raceless, or in other words, that they are the norm. So to address the intersectionality of gender inequality in Africa, we need to confront this kind of thinking and acknowledge how we contribute to those dynamics. Again, taking time and energy to have meaningful conversations about the realities each of us lives. Acknowledging intersectional diversity and recognizing its impact in our lives is not a simple task. As busy professionals with multiple demands on our lives, we might be hoping for the chance to tick off a box and call that achieving diversity or transformation. But as the CEO pledge points out, diversity is not just a simple formula. It requires cultivation. It relies on honest and open conversations on complex topics. And this takes time and commitment because it requires us to work on trusting others to hear our stories. This may mean disrupting our expectations of our own role in building diversity and inclusion. And that is a good thing because the power of masculinity and its role in our professional lives needs to be disrupted. We shouldn't underestimate it. It needs to be disrupted. On a daily basis, we deal with the institutionalized power of masculinity combined with white privilege. And that's what feminist scholar Phumla Dineo-Qola refers to as the expectation that women should adapt to the current system, being empowered into position rather than transforming the formal workplace into a space that is more receptive to women's contributions, needs, and wants. In such an environment, the Black African woman leader particularly is an outsider. And I believe this is what Phumla Qola refers to when she writes about the invisibilization of women's real transformative work. A special report on gender equality in the workplace published in May this year in the Accountancy South Africa website says researchers found that South African women are more ambitious than men when entering the workplace, but that despite women starting their careers ambitious and motivated, men are still more likely to be successful in terms of pay and rank. South Africa scores poorly when it comes to the number of women in executive positions. Roughly 68% of all senior management positions are held by men. Women make up 51% of the South African population, but only 20.7% of board members on JSE listed companies are female, while a significant proportion of JSE listed companies have no female board representation at all. What I find interesting is the statement later in the same article, and it says, over a third of South African women have expressed that their gender and parental responsibilities are holding them back from progressing in their careers. And of course, this is often given as a reason why women start ambitious and sort of look like they were going down. And this speaks to the intersectionality of gender inequality in the workplace, because women are expected to fulfill different family and social roles from men, or as single mothers. They may not have the help of another parent figure in the home. They tend to be unable to fulfill the same professional roles as men. And usually the workplace does not help to address this need, either because leadership is unaware of it, or it feels that it is not part of an employer's responsibility to help a staff member in this way. And this is one of the areas that business management needs to address if it is serious about diversity and inclusion. When I took office as Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, one of the things that bothered me the most wasn't just transformation in terms of racial transformation, was the fact that whilst things seems to be going well in terms of our research productivity and how we're doing globally, we have an aging cohort of people who are global leaders in their field. So I looked at who are the people who are putting us on the map globally, and how long will they be with us? And I realized that they will retire in the next 5 to 10 years. So I initiated what I refer to as the 2030 Future Leaders Program. And in this program, I identified a cohort of rising, ambitious, talented researchers. They were identified on merit. And of course, we're lucky that in South Africa, we've got the National Research Foundation, which has got a rating system. It is voluntary, but it does identify, you apply, and it's a peer review mechanism that goes international. And it identifies if you are 35 years or below, you can get what we call a P rating, which means you are a future leading scholar in your field. If you work hard in the next 5 to 10 years, you will be the leading scholar in your field. And of course, if you are young, you are 35 below that, you'll get only a Y rating. And so what I did, I took everyone who's rated as a P at UCT, and voila, we have only 16. At that time, we had 16 in the country, and 8 of them, half of them were all at UCT. You can imagine the whole country shares the other 8. Talk about prestige. Right. So I took the 8, and then I said, who are the other people who were P rated in the last 3 years? Because the NRF rating system, your rating expires every 5 years. So you've got to keep going. If you don't keep going, the next 5 years you apply, you can get unrated or you can be downgraded. And so I used merit. The only thing was that it would be age, because they would have had a P rating either within 3 years or currently having an E rating. And surprise, surprise, what happened is that I ended up with 14 people in that group. And at that time, only one of them was a white male. The rest of them were women, not the rest. The majority of them were women. And I think 2 of them were Black men. Interesting, isn't it? You look at them, you see, you wouldn't even tell that they're at UCT and they're top performing young people at UCT, because you expect majority white, right? And of course, every year when people get a P rating, they get admitted into the group. But the idea is to groom them with the intention of helping them take up potential leadership roles in their respective fields someday. An important part of the program, of the Future Leaders Program, is one-to-one interviews that I do personally. I do with each one of them to check where is it that they're going, what are the hurdles that they're experiencing, and how do we make sure that within 5 to 10 years, they are the leading scholars in their field. And they tell us, do they want money? Do they want support, mentor, whatever. And many of them, they're high-flying stars. So they actually don't need money because they can attract funding from overseas, but they may need funding for equipment. They may need funding for postdocs and stuff like that. And that's what we give them. But one of the things that came up was a researcher, a woman researcher, the only woman in the Department of Mathematics, who said, I've got 2 children. My husband is in my same department as me. We are both mathematicians. I've got 2 young kids. But when I go to conference, I can't go to academic conferences because I've got young children. My husband can go, but I have to sit here with my children. And when I check in the university, well, there isn't a system that supports a woman to travel with their kids to a conference. The narrative is, no, we don't have enough funds. The woman must go and they'll find their children when they come back. And we found that it made a tremendous difference to pay an additional airfare for that researcher to travel with her husband and children when they go to conferences, because then they can focus on the research. And we had one who says, I just had a child and my research is laboratory based. I need to be on the bench in the laboratory, but I can't. If I'm teaching every term and I also have a baby, can I have just one semester of no teaching, just doing research, the other semester of teaching, so that I can find time? And we could make those amends. Not very big amends, but very important ones. The point I'm making is that finding solutions to help our best talent to feel valued at UCT and to nurture their commitment to the institution as well as their research is not that a difficult task. Because you can ask yourself, if you get, at the moment they're 18, and note, I've been in office, this is the 4th year, and in that group, now we've got 2 white men. We've been adding, right? 2 white men and 3 black men. The rest are women. I think we've got 5 black women, okay? And this is the change that we want to make, and to make these amends is not very difficult. And so it gives me a sense, and I say to colleagues, this is the picture of UCT of the future. It is diverse, it is inclusive, women feel comfortable. In fact, we can see that given a chance, women can lead the space. But this requires initiating genuine, frank conversations around individual needs of top performing people, finding ways to address them. It takes time and conversation, but it's possible. There is a way of valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because when businesses say that they are serious about including diverse people, they need to be serious about those people's priorities. Exploring the underlying roots of gender inequality and intersectionality involves digging into our past as well as our current thinking, so that we can better understand how even we as women might contribute to that dynamic. It is an uncomfortable conversation, but I believe it is what we need to do to build a more balanced relationships with each other and make space for creative women leadership. Not only will we become leaders, we will also become transformation specialists, because we will know from the inside what it takes to achieve genuine diversity in the workplace, which ultimately makes business sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those nuggets of wisdom. We truly appreciate, having these discussions, especially with someone such as your caliber. I think from my side, closing that leadership gap, bringing the diversity and inclusion conversations in key strategic decision-making meetings is going to be quite critical in terms of supporting women. More so, the example you're giving in terms of how do we negotiate to make it easier for women to navigate in their respective professionals. We need to start being deliberate about the things that are very key and what we need to negotiate as women in our respective professionals. So your assumptions and your research is quite valuable from our side. But I think the bigger message is around being deliberate. What are the steps that we are taking to be deliberate in moving forward? And that's what's going to shift the needle if we are deliberate in taking those steps. But Prof, just before we move to the next item, we want to include some of our delegates. There's a question around the mentee you chose in the mentorship program. What made you choose the mentee you chose? What made her stand out? And the person is actually asking from a perspective is, what insights can we gain so that we can secure having strong mentors as well? So when I gather this question, it's more around also as a woman, what work do you need to do for yourself to actually also leverage from experienced women. So if you can address that, Prof.
Thank you very much. I have to acknowledge Yolanda Tuba for starting the Mentorship Boardroom. I love mentoring, but I think the important question to ask is what's making me stay with them? Because choosing them, I'll choose any young person, okay? But there's some that I stay with and some that I don't stay with longer, right? So, and in that video, I was talking about Judy. And here's the thing about mentorship. My view is that mentorship, any relationship, for it to be successful, it has to be reciprocal. And you may ask, so how do you make a mentorship relationship become reciprocal? Because the mentee is there to gain. Well, I gotta gain as a mentor. What am I gaining? Gosh, you make me think, man. You get me excited, right? I miss talking to you because I talk to you and I see that there's a future in this country. So I meet this young woman engineer and we meet the first 10 minutes, I'm screaming, man. I'm like, wow, Judy, you went to the Air Force just by choice whilst you were a student at UP. How did you go to the Air Force? She didn't have to. She grabbed an opportunity that's coming, that was there advertised, and she thought, oh, I don't do any sports, I don't do any cultural activities. Let me go to the Air Force. She didn't say, I'm doing electrical and we are very few there as women, and I'm at UP and I got 10 distinctions and I'm gonna get a job at the gate after graduations. She said, I'm going to, and then she said she was with her friends and they said, they wrote in, they completed the form and the Air Force said, be there at 5 o'clock on this day, we'll come and collect you to go because you've got to go for training and so on. She said when she got to the gate, her friends were not there. She was the only one. She said, of course, the temptation was to go back to my room. 5 o'clock, it's cold. She went in and she said she went in for training and she kept going. And her friends said, oh, no, we changed our minds. I mean, really, we're going to be fine. We'll graduate program, blah, blah, blah. For me, what makes me stay is people who, yes, people like that, who make me miss me, who make me feel that here's a person who's going to make a contribution, who is intentional. So they are not here, they didn't choose me as a mentor because they see me on Twitter and they think chilling with me for an hour would be so nice, they would be so inspired. They've got a vision, they know what they're about, they've got an agenda. You need to have an agenda. You don't sit there and make it my problem that you are here for me to mentor you. And that's what makes me stay. And so all the mentors I'm staying with is precisely because of that. Of course, some of them is because I do see myself in them. All right. So there's another mentee that I'm staying with because I look at her and I'm like, she's so bright. And the first thing she appears on the screen, she says, oh, I'm so honored, whatever. I'm like, oh, you don't know how honored I am. Calm down. Okay, but I can see myself in her. I can see that she works hard. I can see, so sometimes it is that attraction. It's not easy to see from what people have written. Frankly speaking, in terms of what people have written, it's really like, I just choose. And I know that there are many people who have written to me on the app, on the Mentorship Boardroom app, that I haven't responded, but I've responded to a lot. It's only so many days, so many hours in a day. And yeah, and I can't do all of them. But stay is much more critical than get.
That's so true, Prof. Every relationship has to resonate with you as well. So thank you so much, Prof. Given time, and I know you're going to join us in our panel discussion. Given the time, I will hand over to Mameja to proceed with the rest of the agenda, but we'll see you at the panel discussion and looking forward to that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nomonde, and thank you, Prof. Pageng. You're definitely trending. I'm so glad my video was off because I was definitely jumping up and down as you were speaking because I could resonate with the topics you were raising. And some of those questions really, as you said when we did the briefing, that you don't want to be really briefed on questions. So my questions have completely changed. I'm looking forward to being on the other side with you and asking you the new questions. There's so much that you spiked that we will get into in the next session. We're now going to have a sponsor video before handing over to Lynn to introduce our panel.
Alawani Capital Partners was founded in 2015 with a vision to efficiently allocate capital for the greater good of society. Our business was established on a foundation of strong partnerships, and we are committed to building a sustainable and transformative business. We are an independent, Black-owned investment management business that aims to make a lasting impact in South Africa and the rest of the African continent. We seek a fresh approach that delivers positive alpha to our clients and greater value to all our stakeholders in the long term.
We believe that asset management in particular is a very key stakeholder in the South African economy. We believe how we want to do asset management, we can actually make a difference. We can actually change the whole perspective around the role of asset management businesses and how this economy grows.
We came away as founding partners with 3 key pillars for Alawani. We wanted the business to be independent and owner managed, seriously transformative. It goes without saying that the particular time and space that we're in South Africa, transformation has been slow in the investment management arena. And then the third one is we want to approach investments and allocation of clients' capital with long-term sustainability in mind.
Alawani Capital Partners represents to me an organization that embraces diversity in all its shapes and forms. I think over time, if we're successful in creating a company that empowers individuals to deliver at their best and plays to their strengths while being true to our vision of being impactful in the way that we allocate capital, then we would have succeeded as a corporation. The type of individual that I would say is an ideal Alawani person is someone who thinks out of the box, someone who wants to make an impact, who's impactful in the way that they think about life, someone who understands that we have a real responsibility as custodians of capital for our clients, and therefore consistently delivers at their best and takes that responsibility very seriously. Someone who believes in teamwork, because I strongly believe that true greatness is only created through a collective. So someone who understands that and wants to embody that, or embodies that as well.
I'm Maria Munama, working with children who are from very, very poor families who cannot afford to pay for ECD services. ECD is early childhood development. The program helps the community by, with the parents, when they drop their children, they can go and look for work. Shelter is a challenge. It's crampy inside. We have to take them outside to do most of the activities. Sometimes they don't come to the ECD center because it's raining. Alawani plays a big role because at first they started with at least adding towards the stipend of the practitioners.
The strength of the equities process within Alawani is hinged on our belief when it comes to risk. So if you look at the area that I'm responsible for, which is equities, it is by far the largest or the riskiest asset class across the spectrum. However, through time, it has shown that with risk, you do get sufficient reward. So as and when we go about investing clients' assets, we need to make sure that we bear in mind the risks that we're taking with regard to that asset class and not expose the client to undue risk as a result of our activities. So the research efforts and all our other activities have got a very strong risk mentality in mind.
One of the things that you can never underestimate is the support that we've got from our clients. So that support has given us a very solid foundation to make sure that we go ahead confidently to be able to try explore other possible investment opportunities. So going forward, from a client perspective, there is comfort that they're in a partnership with an entity that seeks to drive transformative change within the economy, and yet at the same time, that we are able to deliver on their investment mandate.
For us, success is actually probably different to how most businesses rate themselves. To a lot of businesses, success comes with profitability, comes with size. For us, success will be determined by our impact in terms of the unemployment rate in this country, in terms of how we invest for growth, and also any and every impact that we make towards contributing to a positive GDP growth. If we look back 10, 20 years from now, if we've made a dent in that regard, we'll think we're successful.
Having come this far, Alawani has firmly embarked on its journey to finding a better way to deliver innovative investment solutions. The support received from our valued clients so far will serve as a catalyst for us emerging as an impactful player in the South African landscape. We will continue to live by our belief that it is possible to deliver positive returns for investors while seeking to achieve lasting social impact. Alawani Capital Partners, finding a better way.
Cannot start your video because the host has stopped you.
Thank you so much. I would like to now hand over to Lynn to introduce our next speaker.
Wonderful. I'd just like my video to be reinstated. Perfect. So top of the afternoon to everybody on the call this morning. I believe we've got 413 delegates that signed up to come and watch the AWIF Summit today. And maybe as I kick off, it's just to say, to start off, just looking at that sponsorship video, I'd just like to reiterate the message of thanks to our sponsors, Alawani Capital Partners, and of course, Old Mutual, Old MIG. And thank you for collaborating with AWIF on our 2021 Summit. I think watching that last video and specifically looking at it, I think ABSIP is a shared visionary in saying that we are also wanting to be impactful players on championing change in South Africa. And through various sponsorships, as Namonde chatted through earlier, we will continue to force the agenda in the financial services sector for the inclusion of women. So next up on our agenda, we are very privileged to have our second keynote delivery for the day. And by way of introduction and bio, I'd like to introduce Ms. Busi Mabuza, and she submitted a pre-recorded video for us to watch. We are very privileged, as I said. She is from the Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa, and the IDC is, of course, the largest development finance institution in sub-Saharan Africa. She is the lead independent director for Chogosan. She is the ex-chair of the board of directors for Airports Company South Africa, and she was previously a partner for Ethos Private Equity Proprietary Limited. And if I look at her academic accreditation, she's got an MBA from New York's University Leonard School of Business and a BA in Mathematics and Computer Science from Hunter College City University in New York. Please join me in welcoming the video, of course, the pre-recorded video of Ms. Busi Mabuza, our second keynote delivery for the day.
Women have consistently and persistently been at the front line of the transformation struggle. In my patriotic mind, I believe more so in South Africa than we've witnessed in many other nations. Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, colleagues of ABSIP and AWIF, and most especially, thank you to the organizers of today's summit. We justifiably recognize the historical march to Pretoria in 1956 as a defining moment that reinforced the role of women in the liberation efforts to transform our country. In the same breath, I want to now acknowledge and salute women who, in their individual capacity, be it in small groups, be it on the international podiums, all the way to the local stands in our communities, women who've raised their voices and amplified other women's voices. I honor the powerhouses who I join in the panel today. Professor Pakeng, Mita Mtlari, Yolanda Cuba, and Snetlanhla Dlamini. I honor everyone else who is joining us here today on this virtual platform. I salute women such as Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka. I salute Ma'am Wangari Maathai, Nobel laureate. I also invoke the spirits of Ma'am Victoria Mxenge and Ma'am Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and the many more brave women who charted trails enabling us to break new ground. Just last week, I attended the annual BRICS Business Forum, which this year was hosted by our Indian counterparts. I was so moved, ladies and gentlemen, by one of the panel discussions, which was titled, From Women Empowerment to Women-Led Development, New Ideas and New Approaches. This topic so stirred my soul such that I went and checked the meaning of empowerment, which according to the Oxford Dictionary, and I'll quote here, is either the authority or power given to someone to do something, or, much to my relief, the other definition, which is the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. I know and I believe that our empowerment process fits in the latter category. We've been on a journey of claiming our space. The time is ripe for us to take the lead in the development of our country, our continent, and indeed our world. Despite the reality that women have played a significant role in shaping the world, the truth remains that our contributions to social and economic change is often underrepresented, it's undervalued, and many times not fully recognized. While South Africa ranks amongst the leading countries globally in terms of the number of women in key leadership positions in government and senior management in the public sector that we know, the exact opposite applies insofar as the representation of women in corporate decision-making positions is concerned. The recent progress reported in South Africa with the growing representation of women in the boardroom has unfortunately not yet resulted in a commensurate increase in the representation of women in the C-suite. Women entrepreneurs are making strides to overcome gender-related biases and advance their businesses in South Africa and in the African continent. The latest MasterCard Index of Women Entrepreneurs, MIWE, which tracks female entrepreneurs' ability to capitalize on opportunities provided within their local environments, reports that South Africa has moved up 9 places to rank 23rd globally, and we rank first in the African continent on the 2020 MIWE index. This is a 7.1% improvement compared to last year. Despite this healthy MIWE score, the index shows that women account for 19.4% of business owners in South Africa. This is a mere 20 basis point increase from where we were in 2019. This is anemic progress when compared to Uganda, which ranks first in the world with the highest number of women-owned businesses at 39.6%. When compared to Botswana, which has 38.5% women-owned businesses, and Ghana, 36.5%. We clearly have lessons to learn from our sub-Saharan African neighbors. The July 2021 joint UN Women and International Labour Organization issue, which is titled Rethinking Gender Responsive Procurement, Enabling an Ecosystem of Women's Economic Empowerment, proposes that gender responsive procurement strategies could help countries and governments enable meaningful progress towards SDG goal number 5, which is the gender equality goal, as well as SDG goal number 8, which is the decent work and economic growth goal. This is a powerful reinforcement of the 40% set aside of public procurement for women-owned businesses announced by President Ramaphosa in August last year. In a publication titled Sustainability, published in 2020 by MDPI, public procurement in South Africa was estimated to account for 20% of GDP and was valued at 926 billion rands. This is in 2018 numbers. So at full and successful implementation of the President's directive, women-owned businesses would have access to over 350 billion rands worth of economic opportunity. This would no doubt shift us from women empowerment to women-led economic development. For this to be realized, we need women in financial services, such as yourselves, making strides into senior positions. In my time, we had a wide gaping and fast spinning revolving door, with the sector seemingly incapable of retaining especially Black women in the sector. I want to pay tribute to those of you who decided not to leave the sector when you chose to leave your employers. Some of you formed partnerships and launched businesses, and these are now critical ingredients of this imminent tectonic shift in our economic landscape. The current reality, ladies and gentlemen, despite progress made, women and men do not have the same opportunities to participate in economic activity. When women do participate, we do not receive the same recognition, we don't receive the same wages, and most certainly not the same benefits as men. In 2018, the World Economic Forum estimated that it would take over 200 years to close the overall gender gap in female labor force participation and equal opportunities that is at the current rate of change. How painful is that? The quest for real and measurable economic empowerment and inclusion is an ongoing journey. We can't afford to abandon or be worn down at this moment. The economic and social imperative for women's economic empowerment is very clear. The IMF and other studies confirm that, amongst other things, greater gender equality boosts economic growth and leads to better development outcomes. Secondly, women's economic empowerment reduces income equality, of course, and boosts economic diversification. And this in turn supports economic resilience in those economies. Coming closer to home, the BBBE Commission's National Status and Trends on Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment 2020 report contains statistics that are worth noting. If we look at the sectoral analysis, over 89% of reporting entities in the agri-BEE sector, they refer to an agri-BEE sector, are in the category of less than 10% women ownership. In fact, all the sectors that the Commission reports on seem to prefer this band of ownership for women, 0 to 10% shareholding. Wow. The construction sector, in contrast, which is sadly pulling on the lowest gear at the moment, as we all know, reported that in 2020, up to 7% of its companies had over 51% women ownership. This is a sector deserving of our applause and encouragement. I shall not deal with the financial services sector, as I know you know those numbers only too well. Safe to say, we have our work cut out for us. Please let us not, in the process of doing our work, neglect high growth sectors such as the ICT sector. These too still have a long way to go. Advancing inclusive transformation remains an integral part of the IDC's objective of leading industrial development. I'm proud to say that over the last 5 years, the IDC has approved over 71 billion rands in funding to support industrialization and entrepreneurs. Just to headline these approvals, 60% of the approvals supported broad-based Black economic empowerment. That's 42.5 billion rands over the 5 years. 34% of the approvals went to Black industrialists. 16%, that's 11.7 billion rands, supported women empowered businesses, and 8% supported youth empowered business. These achievements are a result of focus on our mandate to promote economic empowerment and inclusion. We recognize, however, that we still have more ground to cover. Hence, the IDC's corporate plan and strategic business units set targets for funding transformation. Funding women-owned businesses and women-empowered businesses remains a key focus of the IDC. Barriers affecting women in starting or expanding businesses are well known to include access to capital. Many of us don't have their own contribution that is often prohibitive. Access to markets, once you produce your products, how do you get them to market? Access to opportunities, access to information. That saddens me. And of course, the continued monopolistic structures that we continue to see in some of the industries. While these challenges are not unique to women-owned enterprises, they do disproportionately affect us as women because of some of the industry's structural makeup, which predominantly favors males. Gender-restrictive social norms have historically limited the options available to women. These are slowly changing, and with that, there is the opportunity for a positive yield. Now turning to opportunities, and I'll highlight only two, because I'm sure my colleagues will also present some of these to you. I trust that, first of all, many of us will seek opportunities to participate in the new and high growth sectors of the economy, such as financial services, such as ICT. Secondly, let us use our ownership vehicles, and I know I'm talking to the converted here, for real empowerment. More involvement of women in operations, and not just at shareholding level, is very important. Our active contribution to decision-making in businesses will only yield more measurable transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much to Ms. Busi Mabuza. And we wish we could have had her on the live event today, but I think her impact has been felt by all. I'd like to say it's fitting that the leading lady at the IDC, the largest industrial corporation, financial institution, and lending facility across sub-Saharan Africa, is led by a lady who understands the statistics and understands what the impact of only 10% average female ownership across each sector means. And so we definitely have an alignment of interest with ABSIP and the IDC in saying, may we forge ahead together to try and make those changes in all of those sectors. Unfortunately, we can't ask any questions, But one of those questions always out there for me is saying, when we think about these sectors, how do we reduce the barriers to entry for women? And how do we speed up the learning curve for ladies to get into different sectors? But perhaps any questions you had for Ms. Busi Mabuza, you can hold back and we can offer those questions up to the live panel a bit later. So part 2 of the summit, the very exciting upcoming part, is obviously the esteemed panel of agile executives in South Africa. And I'd like to kick it off with a very unconventional way. So we had a glimpse into the life of Prof. Mamoketi Pakeng earlier, and we're going to do exactly the same. So I'm first going to just introduce, we're going to go into the videos of 3 young ladies, and that is Ms. Sneh Dlamini. We're also going to have a look at Ms. Meta Mashlari, and then we're going to have a look at Ms. Yolanda Suba. And I'm going to switch over to the videos right now. Once again, we're going to look at a day in the life of these ladies. It's not just about being polished and on camera during a panel discussion, but what do they do every day before they get to work, and how do they live their lives out there?
So I have the privilege of living in Cape Town, and with the ups and downs of life, it's such an amazing thing to be able to take a walk right here on the promenade, which is spectacular. So that's what I tend to do in my spare time. And just to touch on a couple of topics around, the inclusion of women and gender diversity. I think the first point I want to make is that it has been proven time and time again that diversity in decision making only leads to better outcomes. And so this is not something that is just a moral imperative, but it also is something that generates better outcomes. And so an inclusive environment for women is really important and needs to be facilitated by all of us. Another point I want to make is that it doesn't only rest on women to correct this. Let's, as a collective, take that decision and really implement measures to start including women. And the other point I wanted to make is that while I really appreciate Women's Month, and I think we need to continue just emphasizing the need for inclusivity during the month of August, our efforts need to go beyond that. Let this not be every August and then we all forget about it until the next August. Let's make sure that we really are deeply committed to this cause. And I think the last point maybe I wanted to make is that, for those of us who have managed to break through the mold, to get into leadership roles, for me personally, I can attest to male mentors and sponsors having also contributed to my journey immensely. But let us recognize that that's a privilege. That on average, women don't get that kind of support. They don't get that kind of push. Whether it's a father or a boss or a colleague or anybody else. And so let's take that privilege as the ones who have managed to break through the mold. Let's take that privilege and use it productively to then bring others along. So, let's not have this attitude of, well, I got here and therefore I'm fine. We all have a moral responsibility to bring others along on the journey. And on that, I'd like to thank you for listening to my video.
Hi, my name is Midam Shari. I'm the co-founder and director of Mahlakwa Patla Financial Services. And welcome to my kitchen. As I'm going to be cooking today my specialty spaghetti bolognese, I'm going to be going through and chatting to you around one of the key, very important topics in South Africa. Why don't we have a proper representative of women in the financial services sector? What are the key barriers to our success, and How do we unpack those and how do we break those? I founded Mahlako Apatha Investments along with my sister Makole Mupita in 2008, and we've been there for a long time. And I found every time being questioned about our experience. Let me just go back to in terms of who is Mahlako. Mahlako is an African 100% women-owned advisory and alternative investment management firm, which is focused on social, economic development assets and solutions that deliver sustainable impact and superior risk-adjusted return. In our journey as Mahlako, we've been questioned multiple times in terms of our experience, our industry knowledge, and I wonder, what are the same questions ever raised towards me? And then also one of the things that I also realized is that as we've journeyed on, how many other women are actually there presenting themselves for the opportunities that are available? And as we unpack this mystery in terms of why are women not present, a couple of years ago, I came across a webinar by Reshma Saujani. She is an author of a book called Teach Girls Bravery and Not to Be Perfectionist. And that TED Talk actually really resonated with me in terms of throughout my journey in understanding why are women not present? What are the key barriers for us not being there? One of the key things that came out from the TED Talk is around how boys are habituated all their lives to take risk after risk, and they're actually rewarded for this risk. And now I wanted to unpack for us and for us to actually be a conversation around how do we now get our young girls to be brave in the financial services sector? How do we get them to believe in themselves, to trust in themselves that they actually have what it takes to actually go for it? And I will actually take you back in terms of with me and my sister, our journey in terms of where we come from. We come from a small city in the northern, it used to be called in the northern province, Limpopo. And we were raised by two parents who actually taught us how to be activists and believe in ourselves. Actually, my father was the greatest example of believing in women. When I grew up, my mother was, and not bad to say about housewives, but then she was the one who was the leader in my parents' businesses. But then what I saw from her is that she continuously took risk after risk. She moved from having their small businesses where they had corner cafes to having a normal butchery retail to now moving the retail to another level. Excuse me, I think something is ready. My mother continuously took many risks. She transformed our businesses from a corner cafe all the way to having butchers that had abattoirs to a Toyota garage that was actually selling cars on bulk. And so that was actually the epitome of how you actually teach young girls how to take risks. And I believe that is why we actually need more of role models in our lives. All those women out there who need to showcase young girls in terms of you do not need to have everything before you can actually go for it. And sometimes I wonder, when I go to this Instagram that shows this women, the makeup is done and everything is perfect. And young girls actually are thinking, I need to look so pretty. I need to have it all. But then yet we need to say, hi, young lady, it's okay not to have it all. It's okay just to be yourself, but but then to start from somewhere. But then where is this somewhere that these young girls should start from? In our journey as Mahlaku, we have had lots of failures. And one of the key things that I've learned from the tech talk that I was talking about is that in Silicon Valley, they actually don't take you seriously until you've had at least 2 failures in your life. And in our journey with Mahlaku, we have seen things. And one of the things that I will urge young girls is that failure, you must not be judged by your failures, but then one should be judged by their ability to keep on coming up and raising themselves up and starting over and trying again.
Perfect. Thank you very much, ladies, for that introductory video. I think we're gonna jump right into the panel discussion now. We're gonna deep dive into the topic at hand. And the topic at hand today is an agile executive in South Africa. And maybe just to give you a little bit of context there, we've said that amidst the pandemic turmoil, strife and challenges, opportunities have called for revolutionary and dynamic minds to apply innovation to anything and everything traditional through reimagination, reinvention, and innovation. So today we explore what it's like to be an agile woman in uncharted territories, which is obviously this global pandemic that we're in at the moment. Rejoining us on the panel, and she doesn't need any further introduction, is Professor Mamoketi Bakeng. Our moderator today is obviously our AWIF president, CEO of Marshe Capital. And there I would say, Mamaja's got 18 years of investment experience with her DNA rooted out of mergers and acquisitions and corporate finance coming out of Morgan Stanley and UBS. Ms. Sneh Dlamini is the head of institutional client management at OMEG. Ms. Yolanda Cuba being the vice president of Southern and East Africa MTN Group, and previously the former CEO of Vodafone Ghana. And last but not least, we just had a lovely introduction to Ms. Meta Mashlari online there. And she is what I would call an absolute giant in the renewable energy space. And it's not customary etiquette to cut down on the bios. And I think we have to post them all on the AWIF website. But I think what we want to do today is we want to get into the panel discussion. We are very cognizant of time, and we'd love to open up the questions from Mamaja to start off the panel. So I'm going to hand over to you, Mamaja.
Good afternoon once again. And thank you so much. This is such an outstanding event. I've had so many nuggets, and our panel around an agile woman. I had so many questions that were prepared up front, but I'm going to actually surprise our panelists with some of the questions that we asked, because so much depth has come out of the conversation, and we have had so many other questions that pop up. But perhaps we've heard the voices of everyone here except Yolanda. Yolanda, my first question will be to you. You have had an outstanding career, spanning from being a chartered accountant into being a leader in investments, and then transforming that also into the telecoms industry. Talking about an agile woman and drawing on what some of the ladies have mentioned, how did you take these risks, and how were you able to transform yourself into all these multifaceted careers? And how did you manage this entire environment?
Yeah, thanks, Mamaja. I guess from my side, I have to look at it not as taking risks, but rather as taking the opportunities, right? These were opportunities that actually were around me. Some of them I had to help create them for myself. I always tell people to be successful, you actually have to be a factory making machine of opportunities. The more opportunities you create, the more likelihood there is that you're actually going to succeed in whatever sphere that you actually choose to actually go into. So from that perspective, obviously for me, looking at it as opportunity then meant, then my mind frame is then saying, how do I actually make sure that I'm the best at this? And in doing that, one of the things that happens is that you start actually developing, I call it institutional curiosity, right? Literally, I'm wired for curiosity. I was fortunate enough to work with people around me that actually were interested in all sorts of things. When I worked with Tokyo in the same day, in the same conversation, could talk about climate change, he could talk about virology, he could talk about all sorts of stuff, biotech, you name it, he could talk about it, and including weaponry, right? How to make bombs and things like that, right? And history and this and that. So I actually had to say, how do I survive around people like this? And in surviving around people like that, then I actually started listening to History Channel, to National Geographic, to all these things that people just actually take for granted and just ignore when you're actually scrolling, because it allowed me to actually build that muscle for curiosity. And that muscle for curiosity actually allows you to actually build your learning and unlearning capability as an individual. So one of the key issues that you have to learn as someone who's able to pivot from one profession, one sector to another is your ability to learn. And in your learning, you can't do like this superficial on the top kind of learning. You actually have to be incisive. And one of the things that I learned from one of my bosses, who was Norman Adamy, is something he used to call it a DuPont. He used to say, Yolanda, you have to work out what is the lowest common denominator that affects anything that you do, whether it's a number on an income statement or anything. So if you're actually thinking about how many kilometers of travel happens, you actually have to go all the way to literally how many drivers are there, how many hours do they drive, and so on and so on and so on, and the kind of truck they drive and so on. And that will tell you how we make money and how you are able to influence things. And because I then learned that early on as well in my career, I'm able to actually use this DuPont kind of thinking to say, how do we make money? So when I joined Vodacom, for example, the first thing I asked everyone I met, didn't matter whether they're in finance, they're in sales, they're in technology or wherever, I was asking them the same question: how do we make money? How does what you do help us actually make money? And that allows you to go to the lowest common denominator. So that's the first thing, is adding to your competence and using this kind of institutionalized kind of curiosity to help you get there. The second thing that you need to actually be able to do is have the courage. And Deputy Mother has already spoken about courage earlier, right? And the Prof actually was very clear. Without courage, you can't get anywhere. Full stop, right? And being brave enough to take that opportunity. And for me, it was actually saying, my first big opportunity, I was pushed into, because I was told, we please go and think about whether you would take this role. We've decided to appoint you into this role. I didn't come back for almost 5 days, I think. And then my deputy chairman came to me and says, Yolanda, where do you think this is, right? And basically said, but just understand, we are here to support you. We are the ones as a collective that are putting you in this position. Therefore, we do not want you to fail. We are here, right? And just having those kind of conversations and all that was important at the beginning. And now I self-motivate. I said, if they appointed me, then they must have seen something in me. I didn't put myself into this position. So that courage, that boldness to actually then say, okay, I've got the opportunity now. How do I make sure that I actually build on the opportunity in order to actually make sure that I make an impact? And then the last thing is around consistency. We do not get better. We do not actually become the kind of people, I say history will remember if we are not outstanding. And part of being outstanding is actually having this constant dissatisfaction that things can be better than what they are today. And consistency, once you do the same thing over and over again, 5 minutes every day, by the time you're doing day 10, you're going to 7 minutes. By the time you're going to day 50, you're doing 10 minutes. And whatever it is that you're doing, you are constantly improving. And so that level of consistency is really important in order to actually add on to your capability. So if someone quickly asks me, what are the 3 things? Those would be, I would say, the 3 things that have helped me actually transition and pivot between sectors and between roles.
Thank you so much for that, Yolanda. And, you know, this theme of bravery and courage is coming through and through. And I think if there's one of the key takeaways from today to every single person that has dialed in is to take this bravery as women, because, you know, sometimes we shy away from positions, from opportunities. And I loved what you said. It was not risk. It was opportunities that you also co-created. So, and you mentioned something else that hit a spot in me about the support system. And this is where we need the men to work with us. It can't just be us women saying, you know, we need to get into these places. Without them, we can't actually get into that. We need that whole ecosystem and the consistency. I mean, I always, in our work, I always say to the guys, you can't have a dot in the wrong place. It starts as small as that. The consistency must always be there. And factual. I mean, I don't know how many of us wake up every day and read and look at different channels to educate ourselves further. My next question, so thank you for that. My next question to you, Yolanda, and you can think about it as I go on to SNE, is around your mentorship program, what you are trying to achieve there, and how can the women that are on this, and the men actually that are on this webinar today, how can they actually participate? Because I think that is so huge. 20,000 is a multiplier effect that will spread throughout this country. So well done on that initiative. I'm going to come back to you on exactly how it works. SNE, I'm going to come to you now. I loved your intro on, you know, in the spaces that we are, the ones who actually break that ceiling, opening up doors for others. Is it happening? Are we agile enough in the fund management space and in the financial services as a whole to accommodate women and bring on more women, to create the right environment that women can thrive in as professionals and as fund managers? I have a fund manager meta here, and we all want to know, is enough money being allocated to women? I was reading a report about last year, which I remember thinking, women have a specialty when it comes to investments, because we most times check ourselves 9 out of 10. So that going before we are ready is important, but we also have the ability to perform and outperform. There was a study done by Goldman Sachs that said that women fund managers in the US last year outperformed the listeds by 48% during a crisis. So are we allocating enough money to women? How can we be agile enough to include more women into the financial services sector and into fund management?
Thank you for that question, Mamecha, and good afternoon to everybody. Just going to your question around whether there's enough assets being allocated to women, I think we need to take a step back. The first problem is that we don't have enough women managing money to begin with. So while we've seen progress in terms of the number of women in asset management firm, we tend to see that in terms of leadership positions, women are lacking, and we've got a big problem in investment teams. And not only is there a small number of women in investment teams, but you tend to find that women join as investment analysts, and then very few of them get to progress to being portfolio managers, who are the individuals that you'd be allocating to. So if I just quote a report, the Citywire 2020 Alpha Female Report, which is a global research paper, it basically says that globally we only have 11% of portfolio managers that are women, which is a very small number, We also see that in terms of turnover of portfolio managers, there's a greater turnover of women relative to men, and that at the current rate of progress, in order for us to reach gender parity, it would take something in the region of 194 years, which is completely unacceptable, I'm sure, as you will all agree. So these are the areas that we need to address first and foremost. And I think that asset management firms need to have very clearly articulated transformation strategies that speak to gender diversity. So I think it's easy to talk about gender diversity at a superficial level, but how many of fund managers actually have documented intent around increasing women investment decision makers? And I think with the progress that we've seen so far, we can give a lot of credibility to asset owners who seek to allocate to women by putting pressure on asset managers to actually grow female portfolio managers. I think there are a number of other initiatives such as succession planning that need to be put into place, and as well as the training of women. But generally speaking, I think as you probably had initially thought, there isn't enough allocation to women, but the core problem is that there aren't enough women portfolio managers in our industry to begin with, and this definitely needs to change.
Wow, a nice challenge to have as women. And I know there are a number of women entrepreneurs. Thanks for that, Sneh. In the first instance, I mean, I think there are a lot of new fund managers, Mita being one of them, that are coming up. So watch this space. We are coming for those allocations. But I love what you said. I mean, and as you mentioned, women come in as investment analysts, and then progression to those executive positions does not happen, obviously, for a number of reasons, but the environment not catering for them, being mothers, wives, aunties, godmothers, and as well as being able to participate as an investment professional. So in my next question, I'm going to ask you about what can we do differently in the workplace and what Omega is doing around this. I'm now going to turn over to my sister Meta. I've known Meta since we're 11 years old. Everything that she was saying about her parents resonates. I remember them when we were at school. Her mom was this bold woman that you could not miss. And that boldness shines through Meta and Makole through and through. Now, Meta, I'm going to ask you about two things. The first one, I mean, you are an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife, and you still make the time for all those three parts and you are an agile woman that can fit all those three parts. And the second one, which is intertwined, is that as an entrepreneur, you've had to be agile enough. I remember when you started, consulting and advisory, and now you found an opportunity that people were not even seeing. I mean, some of us were not even seeing it at the time, around renewable energy. Before we all could spell renewable energy, you were already in there. So number one, how do you, navigate being all these roles? And number two, how did you find this opportunity into renewable energy, and what advice can you give the ladies on the call?
Wow, thank you, Mamita. And I'm proud to be a friend of yours. I just give my best. And I love my work. I love everything that I do. And I was a coach in terms of from my perspective. Sorry, I think my video has a problem. I'll just continue.
Continue, Meta.
I've made everything that I've just made everything. Like, for example, My husband is a partner, not only as a husband, he's a partner through and through. He, even from a work perspective, when I need advice, he's my boardroom in the house. My kids, I also take them along. And also I learned from the best, like you say, my mom, you know. I remember when we were at St. Mark's, my major, I mean, my mother got us into this private school in the middle of the Bundus. But then the first thing she wondered is like, who supplies the meat here? And my mother ended up supplying the meat, the whole meat and fresh produce of St. Mark's. I went to Wits. In my dormitory, my mother asked, who's supplying the cleaning products in this dormitory? She found the matron, and my mother was a supplier of the cleaning products in our dormitory. So she always like took on the opportunity. And when we actually going through in terms of life and the matriarchal system of why maybe do women become where they are, we're actually, as women, as mothers, we actually have to look at ourselves, because before you can get a mentor somewhere else, is how am I raising my own daughter? And I know one of the key things with my sister, and a lot of people used to ask her, why is she not a housewife? And she said, I mean, there are not enough people like me for me to be a housewife. Why would my girls want to be? And I'm not saying, like I always say, but then it takes the inner self in terms of that family life. Also, we were raised by a nation, and this whole notion nowadays of saying my mother, you know, has to be everything to me. What about my next door neighbor? Because I have a business trip, phoning Auntie Mamaja, phoning Auntie Sophie to say, you know what, I'm going away. I have to be somewhere else. For this week, you're going to be a mother to my daughter and my sons because I'm not there. You know, the whole of notion of like thinking that we must be raising our children on our own and letting our work, it's either a work or my home, and I can never have both. Obviously, it is tough. And I always say to my husband, when we both have meetings at the same time and we have to attend something for school, I say, why does your work take priority to mine? And but then if you marry a good person, like I've also learned from my father, who actually gave my mom the space to be who she wants. And as women, as we are choosing a work environment, is also about how do you choose the partners in your life as well, those people, because they play a very important role. And I like what Yolanda has talked about in terms of taking opportunities. I mean, when we started out as Matlaku, we're fortunate enough that my partner, Makole, was coming from Old Mutual, and I was through and through an entrepreneur. I had set my articles, worked at Investec, but then I had been in the entrepreneurial space. I was selling cement. I learned how to make cement from slag, from metal steel. And we said, how do we put all those things and look at what are the opportunities that are out there in the market? The advisory was, you know, government was doing transactions, but in these transactions, government was not getting the best advice. And when you look at the way they were packaging the transactions, it was not proper. So we said, now there is a space for us to play in that, to make sure, because we benefit from that, to make sure that government packages opportunities so that there are proper opportunities available in the market. And at the time, I mean, the buzzword that was, I know it was not maybe everywhere, but then the only infrastructure play that was happening was actually renewable energy programs. It was at the time there was even the type of words, refit or whatever. And we said, you know what, let's come together with a group of guys from all kinds of plant, renewable energy company, where we developed wind assets from scratch. Mamet, I don't want to let you know, that first transaction, we lost all our money. So a lot of people tend to think that, you know, we bumped up to this renewable energy thing, we lost all our money. But then we didn't stop and say, because we lost money, we are going to stop there. We just took lessons learned. Where did we go wrong? All the things that went wrong in those transactions, we put them into possibilities. We put them into what are the opportunities. Was the lack of money. That's why now recently we launched the 1.75 billion rand energy fund, women in the energy sector. And we always, at each and every point of view, look at what is not happening according to how you would like it to happen, and don't complain about it. Take it as an opportunity for you to particularly service and play in that industry.
Thank you so much, Meta. So many nuggets from your speech. The first one I want to start with is your partner. Sheryl Sandberg said it very well, that the biggest career decision a woman makes, in fact, a man or woman, is who you marry, because that partner can make or break and help or not help in the decisions you're making. And for sure, Sydney does that. I've seen it personally. And you also mentioned something around the fact that it takes a village to raise a child. And I can attest, you know, that Meta's friends, we are all a village. You know, we all step in. The ones who do not have children, please take care of my child now and then. So we need to always lean into each other. I really love that. It's one thing to have helpers, but to have the aunties that you can also learn from, and you know, who give you advice. That's really critical. And I think another thing, and I don't know how we change this, the whole notion of taking risks as well. So there's taking opportunities, but there's also taking risk, and the ability to fail and really relaunch. Thanks for sharing that, Meta, because when we all share our successes, we forget to share the stuff that didn't work as well as we thought it would. So I'm going to come to you, Prof. I always feed off your energy. I had to watch your video about 4 times when you sent it on Sunday. It was just amazing. And the whole ability to move from, you know, being meditation to exercise, Sunday sessions, making time for us here, mentorship. I mean, you ladies over here on this panel are dynamic. I'm learning so much from you. Prof, you mentioned something, you said, you know, much goes into what makes us as a person. We're not just defined by being a woman. Now, I'm always challenged by this, and I'll tell you something, Prof. I need to share, I'm gonna share my little secret here. When I walk into any boardroom, firstly, and I remember it was a decision that I'm going to walk in as a woman first. From the way I dress, I don't have to change. I mean, I used to be an investment banker and wear pinstripe suits to fit in with the men. I mean, can you imagine how ridiculous? So now that is out of the window when I walk in. And then the second, I call the women in my life that came before me. I remind myself that I am Khotua, Abuli Sibala Matsleng. But then at the same time, I still need to bring in the investment banking work that I've done. And so, I mean, how do you navigate that? What advice could you give women on drawing all those strengths? Because to me, it's the art of being a superwoman. In fact, a super being. If you can draw on all those parts and bring them, keep bringing them in as and when you need them.
Thank you very much, Mamecha. Let's make it complex a little bit more, because it's not just who you are that has to make all these decisions. It's also what you find in the office. And so what the office is, or what the position is, you find cultures, traditions, ways of being, seeing, and whatever. And it's a good question. So what do you draw on, whatever? I asked myself when I became VC, what is it that I'm not willing to give up? Who will I be when it ends? Because I mean, you guys are lucky. Your jobs are like set, right? We have a term. So 5 years down the line, or actually in a university, it's quite hectic. People don't know that Senate can decide tomorrow. They can vote. They can pass a motion of no confidence anytime. I have 4 meetings of Senate. I'm the chair of Senate. If Senate says motion of no confidence, then it's crisis all around, right? Basically, they're saying get out. So I ask myself, who will I be when it ends? Because for me, it is important to know what am I not willing to give up, and who will I be? Because I am not my job. I am not, there are things that I am not. I'm not, just like you're not your hair, you're not your job, right? But there are things that I am. And the things that I am are centered around my values, okay? And some of those things those are the things that inform the decisions that I make, okay? My values inform the decisions that I make. And then, so and a good example is when I took office and there's an inauguration. I mean, an inauguration, and I said, I don't want it. And don't think it was easy, because the council says, you don't want an inauguration, excuse me, who are you? I mean, this is what we do. And I said to them, but that's a lot of money. Why spend money? And I said to them, look what happens at the inauguration. The speech after speech where people talk about how amazing I am. I mean, really, do we need that? I mean, I know that already. Why do we need that? And they said, no, but we also invite donors, partners, whatever. And I said, any donor who will cry that I refuse to have an inauguration because it's a waste of money, they will not be real. They will have a problem. Then it means they are not a donor we should keep. Any donor should value that, because I'm giving reasons for why. How can I have an inauguration when there are so many students who have completed their studies and they haven't graduated? Take that money, use it to bail out the students who have completed and need to graduate. Okay, that was my decision. And I said, this is the best way to introduce who I am. Now, what was I doing there? I was saying, I'm not just a woman. I didn't say to them, I'm not just a woman. I was saying, I'm not just a woman. I'm not just a Black woman. I'm not just a Black person. I'm not just a small little me, all right? I'm something else, okay? And this something else that I am is how I would like you to introduce me to the university. Okay, and that is my values. Okay, and that, for me, that's important. So there are critical moments where your decisions will be based on that, your value system, right? And then there are times when I make decisions and the decisions might not resonate with my personal political project, but they're in the interest of the institution, the long-term sustainable success of the institution. And I make a decision. So I am clear about, I am here to lead an institution. I am not here for myself. All right. So I want to get out of this office whole. I do not want to lose who I am, values, but I'm here for the institution and I'm not here for myself. So I'm not going to use where I am just to advance myself. I'm going to use where I am and who I am to benefit the institution. Okay, so when a decision, and in this job, that, I mean, people have no idea how tricky it is to be VC, right? I mean, it's like you're running a country, okay? And any day somebody who can't write even a paper can say, we don't want you. They can go on Twitter and swear at you and call you whatever, okay? Now, you are managing this kind of constitution, then you've got to make decisions. When it comes to that, I sacrifice my personal political project in the interest of the institution. And this may be controversial, and I'm not going to give an example, because if I give an example of a decision that I made, I mean, just as I was getting appointed, a big debate hit me. So I've never had a normal Senate. I have never had a normal Senate, because my first meeting of Senate, it was a big international debate. It can only be at UCT. No other university can have that kind of thing, because you can cook it. I mean, people have no idea, right? Vets can have 3 suicides and nobody knows in the country. I'll have 1. That's got nothing to do with us. And I must explain, right? So I had a big issue happening. That's political, that's debated all over the world, that a decision has to be made, it's voting, it's like it's emotion. Professors come to Senate with written speeches, you know, the ones from the Faculty of Law who stand up and make speeches. And and I have to say what my stance is. I have to go to council and give them what's my wise counsel. Whatever decision I make, I will make one side angry. And I made it. And I decided I'm willing to take the beating because this decision is in the interest of the institution. So I had to look at what's the bigger picture? What's the bigger picture here? If we make this decision, is it going to change the world? Is it just going to make us look good and make me whatever? And I made that decision that's in the interest of the institution. So for me, it is important to, and I'm honest with them and say to them, this may not be how I feel personally, but I know for sure this is good for the institution. Vice chancellors will come and go. Institutions must outlive the vice chancellor. And that's what informs it. And my view is that that's integrity. You've got to do that. You can't think that you are the institution. I'm not the institution. I'm just here. I'm breaking the path. I'm taking the institution somewhere. Someone has to find it healthy. It is important for South Africa, and it's important for the continent as well. Thanks, Mamita.
Thank you so much.
I hope I answered that I'm not just a woman. So I hope I pulled out the fact that there's political ideologies, there's values, there's all sorts of things that make me. Whereas when you see me, you can think that you're appointing just a Black woman. Well, you're appointing a whole lot of things.
Yes.
And they want to hit you in the boardroom.
I love it, Prof. And you hit on a number of things. I mean, the values thing. You said, who will I be when it all ends? I mean, if we could all start with that in mind, and because everything else falls into place, the values that you spoke about. So you no longer enter as a Black woman, you no longer enter as your entourage, you enter as the person you want to be at the end of it all, and represent your values and take interest of the institution. I mean, it's so nice, I guess, for other people to do things for personal gain. I personally do not take much. It does not. I mean, for me, it's not satisfaction, money, all these other things. But it's that thing. Who am I going to be? I once said this exercise that they made us do when I was at school, and they said write your obituary, and then work backwards, because you want to know, what legacy am I really building here? I just have to apologize to our audience because we're running over, but I'm not too sure when I'm actually going to have these ladies in the same room again. So ladies, I hope you do not have commitments. If I can steal a bit of your time, and anybody from the audience, if you want to leave, that's fine. Thank you for joining. But we also have a recording which will be available on YouTube and on our LinkedIn as AWIF. Yolanda, back to that question. Tell us about this mentorship program.
Yeah, the Mentorship Boardroom, that's what it's called. And basically the Mentorship Boardroom is a platform that allows mentees and mentors to actually connect. And what we're trying to achieve through the Mentorship Boardroom is really to inspire hope and guide people, to coach people, and really share experiences for those that have walked the journey before. And basically what we ask is, we go to people like yourself, people that are on this call, and say, you are captains of industry, you have had phenomenal experience in different kind of spaces. Please sign up as a mentor on the platform, and basically give time when you are available. And that's important, it is when you are available. And on the platform, you literally just state what times you have available. It could be 8 to 9 p.m. like me in the evenings, right? Not necessarily, or at 6 to 7 in the afternoon or whenever. And the mentees then are able to see that, sign up, and then are able to see that time, and then they are able to pick you as a mentor or anyone else that they so choose. And the idea behind it is two things. One is to bring a whole lot of people that are capable, that actually want to keep back, that actually wants to hold that door ajar for the others to come in, an opportunity to give back without the kind of headache of saying, how do I do it? Do I have to do it like this, and so on?
it allows that for the mentors. On the others, for the mentees, it's literally being able to identify someone whose journey that you identify with and be able to talk to them. You know, Prof earlier on was talking about the Mentorship Boardroom, and she said, you know, it's amazing that they were like almost a kindred spirit, right? It was a version of herself so many years ago that she actually met one of the people that she met. And that's what it's designed for. No one knows their own journey better than the mentee. So when we actually almost like allocate mentors at work, it's nice, but actually it doesn't fulfill the need of mentorship and coaching, where we actually take it to the next level. And this allows for that, because, I mean, the story that Prof actually said, it's actually been repeated by many mentors. Like they'll say, you know, this was actually talking to myself like 20 years ago, right? And that is beautiful to hear, because again, it means that the mentees know themselves better and they're selecting people's journeys that they identify with the most. And if you identify with someone's journey the most, the likelihood that your outcome in life would be similar to that person is that much more as well, right? So giving exposure to young people. By the way, I keep on saying young people when I talk about the Mentorship Boardroom. We have people in their late 40s that are mentees on the Mentorship Boardroom. Okay, so, and that's important. So it's not about age. It really is about what experience or what kind of, you might be thinking, I'm in tech now, I want to pivot to financial services. Let me speak to Sine, for example, right? Or I want to pivot to academics and I'll be 45 or 30 or whatever, it doesn't matter. Let me talk to Prof as well. So those are the kind of stuff that one can actually do on the Mentorship Boardroom. So it is a platform that is open to everybody. So I would encourage anyone and everyone to actually log on to the mentorshipboardroom.com and actually register either as a mentor, a mentee, or both. By the way, you can actually be a mentor and a mentee as well. And the idea, by the way, is to reach 1 million people over the next 10 years, 70% of which should be women, right? And that's the idea in Africa. So what we're trying to do is create the next level of leaders that are inspired by the generation before.
Wow, I really commend you, Yolanda, for this program. You know, Fred Swanika loves saying, do big things.
Do hard things. Do hard things.
Yes,
do hard things. And this is one of
things. Yeah. 1 million people in the next 10 years. Wow, because leadership is everything, really. And if we can all impart what we've learned and also learn from others. And I also love the fact that, you know, it's not only for young people, because some of us might want to pivot into other things and, you know, you can get that experience there. And I also loved, I mean, what Prof said, it's mentees that have an agenda and a vision that and also keep it interesting. So everyone, mentorshipboardroom.com, please go in as mentors and as mentees. Thanks for that, Yolanda. Sneh, back to you. So what is OMIG doing to change the environment that women work in? And how can other corporates, I guess, also learn from what you've done?
So I feel very fortunate to be in an organization that I feel has and is doing quite a lot, although I absolutely feel that there's room to do more. So I believe that inclusivity needs to be driven as a multi-dimensional kind of project. You know, there's various aspects to it. I think if I were just to summarize it into two, I think there's an element of institutionalizing gender diversity principles that needs to take place. And then of course there's the other, for lack of a better word, softer areas. And I think Prof said earlier in her keynote address that, you know, businesses need to get serious about, you know, accommodating the lifestyles of these future leaders. So I think those are the two kind of areas. So I also alluded earlier and said it's important to have a clear strategy that's well articulated. And in our strategy, it's driven at an executive level, which I think is important, from the CEO as well as the rest of the executive, of which I'm a part of. A dedicated transformation committee that is there to ensure that, you know, the strategy is properly implemented, I think is also very critical. I used to chair the Employment Equity and Diversity Forum, where, you know, gender diversity was a central topic. And for the last 2 terms, we've actually had female chairs of the Employment Equity Forum. So I think that's also important. Another critical area is that, and I'm not sure if a lot of businesses have this in place, but in the KPIs of our senior managers and certainly our executives are gender diversity objectives. So people's personal success in our business is linked to, you know, what they're doing from a diversity perspective. So it's, you know, having skin in the game, so to speak. And then in terms of the strategy itself, I think the 3 key elements are increasing the number of women leaders. There's a deliberate effort to do that, and you also see it in the diversity of our executive. Another one is increasing the number of women investment decision makers. So, you know, we are in the business of managing money, and there's no reason why women shouldn't be participating in the core function of an asset management business. And even this lack of progression from investment analyst to portfolio manager, you know, makes you ask the question, do we not trust women to pull the trigger and to take investment decisions? So that's a very, very important element of our strategy. And then another element, which I think is probably not as explored as it needs to be in the industry, is through responsible investing. So through a stewardship program. What we do is, you know, we invest in JSE listed companies on behalf of our clients. And our dedicated responsible investment team engages the boards of companies and the management of companies around gender diversity. And I think both Nomonde as well as Prof also spoke to, you know, diversity of boards. So our team, using the power of capital, actually actively engages these companies. And we've actually had a number of examples of JSE listed companies where we have actually seen a change. So gender diversity is integral to our ESG strategy. Then, you know, Old Mutual is also not just Old Mutual Investment Group, but as a whole, I think an employer that has taken a bit of time to think about these issues. For example, we have a creche on our premises, which is great, you know, for mothers where the kids are accessible, as well as for single mothers. I think in particular, very useful facility to have. In terms of maternity leave, women can take up to 6 months, which I think is quite generous if I think of of corporate South Africa. And then I think that all firms have a responsibility to increase the pool of investment talent. So over and above just what's happening inside your organization. And, you know, our Imfundo Trust has spent about 40 million Rand in fees for over 100 students in the last 10 years. And the majority of those being women. So that injection into the talent pool is also absolutely critical. So those are some of the initiatives that we're doing at Old Mutual Investment Group. But I absolutely think that, you know, we need to collaborate as businesses. And I think that there's a lot more that we can do together.
Thank you, Sneh. I can tell the passion that you have of some of the stuff that you're doing at OMEG. Yeah, and I like this whole accommodating the lifestyle and being deliberate on implementation. I think the Prof also alluded to that. Now, Meta, I know you're leaving, and now closing remarks, ladies, from everyone in 1 minute, I would say. Because we are running over immensely. I think, Mita, you'll remember this song from school. Why don't you brighten the corner where you are? So, Mita, how can you, as an agile woman, advise other women to brighten the corners where they are, to bring this agility as a financial services lady on what they do and being impactful?
Just believe in yourself and go for it, and never give up. Never give up. If you try, you fail, don't worry. And the power of networking. And congratulations to the women who are on this platform, who made it today to the work that ABSIP does. Networking is the only way that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mita, and thank you for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time and you sharing your experience with us. I will take a question from the audience. We had very few questions, but Prof, maybe if I can ask you that question as Sneh thinks about how she's going to brighten the corner where she is. The question says, what is your advice to ABSIP to make work recognized in economy, to make care work recognized in the economy? And I guess advice to ABSIP on how to transform the financial services sector and bring in this agility we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how ABSIP works, but probably you need to engage with the people who are in that space first. Because my view is that doing things for people without them doesn't always work. Because if you don't understand the environment, then it will not work. I mean, it's better if the strategy comes through conversation or it's co-developed. Then it will be much better that way, I would suggest.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that. And you know what, I have to give it to our president of ABSIP because we started a transformation series. To your point, if we understand that environment, it's the only way it needs to be collaborative with buy-in of everyone. So thank you for that. This collaboration theme is really important. Sneh, how are you going to brighten that corner, lady? And Prof, maybe you will also tell us how you're going to brighten the corner in being bringing in these agile women. Sneh?
There's so much to be said around this, and I think that this COVID-19 pandemic has actually opened up opportunities for women. There's a lot that can be said, but if I look back on my career and I ask myself what has been the one sure thing that has gotten me to where I am, I would say it's excellence and it's dedication to your work. I always say that nothing beats excellence, and even when people are trying to be prejudiced against you, it's very difficult to ignore excellence. So for me, the brightest shining light is a light of excellence. So ladies, put your heads down and work. You will reap the rewards through time.
Thank you so much, Sneh, and I couldn't agree anymore because I couldn't agree further because this. I think all of us can relate to this. You just put your head down. And I'm always surprised and at awe because I think millennials are different from us. I used to think it's just from our generation, but I think it's something we need to hand over to them because you don't start from today and tomorrow you're CEO. You have to pay your school fees and be excellent every single time. Prof, closing remarks from you?
Yeah, I would say if you are going to be in a leadership position, you need to know that not everybody will like you. Yeah. And that's because you make decisions. And oftentimes in a leadership position, there are no right or wrong decisions. There are decisions. You make them and you stand by them. So being decisive is important for leadership, but it also creates a situation where not everybody likes you. So take that leadership. Remember why you are there. It's not for you, but it's to build further. So if you do that, people might not like you at that time, but one day people might realize that that was so good for them because that's just humanity. Human beings are interesting. It's not always that they support decisions that are in their interests. So do what is right, irrespective of who's watching, and you'll see the benefits, coming rolling down. And you can only do that when you have developed credibility and you are believable. You've got to have credibility and you are believable and go with the people who want to make progress. There will always be people who want to stay behind or drag you behind or whatever. Go with those ones who want to go and make a difference.
Thank you so much.
They say well-behaved women never made history, right?
I wanted to say amen to that. I totally agree. Totally agree. So let's go out there and be the change, be brave, and remember why we are here. So thank you so much, Prof. Parking. Thank you so much, Sneh and Meda and Yolanda in their absentia. Ladies, I've had so much fun. I could continue with this conversation for another 2 to 3 hours, but I know you are very busy ladies. And thank you so much to everyone who has joined us. I'm now going to hand over to Nobu to just do closing remarks quickly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mamaja. Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, what an amazing summit that we had today. So many nuggets, so much inspiration, so many powerhouses that were speaking today. Firstly, I'd like to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank Old Mutual Investment Group. And I'd also like to thank Aluwani Capital Partners. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to more partnerships in the future. And at this point, I'd also like to welcome, as you can see, there's a lot of work to do. I'd like to welcome any other organizations who would like to partner with us and support us by way of sponsoring. Please do get in touch with us at connect@absip.co.za. I would also like to thank our president of ABSIP, Ms. Pololiteka. I'd like to thank the president of AWIF, Ms. Mameja Moshe, and the leadership team, the AWIF leadership team, and the AWIF subcommittee for the tireless work and contribution that has gone into making this day such a success. So thank you, ladies. And as was outlined by Nomonde, AWIF is not just about Women's Month. There are 4 strategic pillars. There's a lot happening in the background. So please do stay in touch, follow us on our social platforms that I will give at the end, and be involved and engage with us. To our speakers, wow, to our keynote speakers, Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng, thank you so much for your keynote address. And really, we need to go out there, ladies, and be the girl who makes the pots happen, as she said in that video. There is still a lot of work to do in terms of inclusion, equity, and transformation. But businesses also need to realize that the power that is gotten from the power of diversity is much greater than the power of masculinity. So that was my takeaway from that. And our other keynote speaker, Ms. Busi Mabuza, would like to thank you as well for highlighting that as much as strides have been made to in the transformation journey, there's still so much that needs to happen, and that we mustn't tire. We must just continue. We must not give up. We must keep going and not tire. And lastly, I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists, Ms. Yolanda Tuba, Ms. Sinenhlanhla Dlamini, Ms. Meta Mhlari, and Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng. Thank you so much for that power-packed panel discussion. We got so many nuggets from it. Thank you very much. And thank you, all of you, for attending. We really, truly have been energized. So let's keep the momentum going. You can follow us on our social networks. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook for ABSIP. And for AWIF, we are on LinkedIn and Instagram, and of course our website, www.absip.co.za. Thank you very much.
Filled with catastrophe, but she knows she can fly away. Oh.